Hey everybody, this is Perch. Well, what is going on with the X-Men? There was a debunking of sorts. I was apparently the video I did, or one of the comments I did, around Hellions being canceled needed to be clarified. So Jerry Duggan actually tweeted and has made some comments about people of Earth. Okay, I'm not going to comment on that. Hellions was not canceled. The book had a trajectory and an ending, like the year we spent with Cable. Those of us that collaborate on stories adore endings. All good things, ... So, as I said in the video, and I suspect at least one of the people who reached out to me to say my video was wrong, didn't watch the video. Because as I mentioned in the video, I thought, odds are high that Hellions will be relaunched as part of the, beginning of the year X-Men relaunch bonanza that apparently is coming. And that, my guess, and I said it was only a guess, is that Zeb Wells, who is doing the book, which is now part of the very taxing Spider-Man team of trying to put out a book a week, we needed to find somebody new, and that the book would most likely be relaunched in some form, some fashion. That's still the case. But it gets to this bigger question of cancellation and everything else, and I'll double down because as I'm going through the December solicits, and that video will go up tomorrow, I don't know, at some point, for Marvel, it seems really clear to me that Marauders, number 27, also out in December, is also getting canceled or ending or a completion of a story to lead to a new story. I don't know how you want to call it, but anyway. The solicitation reads, "The sun sets on the Marauders." I mean, what are you supposed? The Marauders' first tour comes to a close as the shakeups within the Hellfire Trading Company crystallize. Will any of the inner circle remain standing? And can the crew survive the changes happening around them? 40 pages, $4.99, a cover that indicates, Kate Pryde and the I really don't like Kate Pryde dressed as a goofy pirate. I don't know why. It's really doing it, I know, for a number of members of the X Office, but I can't stand it. It seems like goofy cosplay as a character. It's weird. I don't mind Bishop's costume. I think it's fine. Em is always fine. I like they're doing stuff with Calypso and Frenzy. I like that. I think Iceman's on that team and has been largely wasted as a character they trot out when they need to remind people that he's gay, and then he immediately vanishes again, which I think is a huge waste of that character. But regardless, we don't have word from Marvel that Marauders is canceled or ending or anything, but that solicitation makes it sound like it is. So this gets to the overall, back to what Gary Duggan said. Call it whatever you want. I mean, I understand, but this starts to feel like we're playing semantics word games with this stuff. When a title ends, it is, I know we do want to call it finished, ending. What's getting people is canceled. Typically has connotation behind it, like the sales were low and so it was canceled. Well, I mean, first off, I know the sales are lower than on the X books than many people want to believe. Now, that's not saying they're a disaster. They're still higher than other books Marvel is publishing, but the X books are not. None of the X books are putting out millions of dollars or millions of copies. They're not doing that. But I don't think these titles are necessarily in cancellation zone for low sales. If that was true, a ton of Marvel's line would be in that place. So if we're going to say canceled means, some bad person came in, some editor came in and said, your book isn't selling high enough, you're canceled, which is kind of how comics operated back in the 80s, then sure. But the 80s was a long time ago. And we've now seen, relaunches and reboots and titles end and start again and all kinds of stuff. And so I think the idea that we're still kind of using a 1980s mentality of what canceled means. And so we're saying the word canceled isn't completely accurate here. Look, the book ended. I don't believe there's a strategy here of we're going to end the book and, relaunch it with a new number one that is not related to trying to artificially spike the sales with a new number one issue and a ton of variant covers and all the other stuff that Marvel has been cheerfully doing for the last 10 years. Marvel relaunches their books all the time. So when a series ends, what are we supposed to call it? This title was ended and then it will come out again. Well, if you haven't announced it's coming out again, then do you want us to just say the comic ended? Would that make people feel better? I don't. This seems very, very silly. Other than, and here's an area where I find myself weirdly aligned with Rich Johnston, who says, quote, "For whatever reason, Marvel seems embarrassed whenever they cancel or otherwise end an ongoing series. Sometimes the state that the series is ending, but more often than not, they just stop soliciting it. And so we must rely on subtle clues that make a solicit say, this is the final issue, without outright saying, this is the final issue, like DC solicits do. It's not clear what drives his secrecy, other than a desire not to see articles and headlines like Marvel cancels blank." I mean, okay, sure. Look, the comic industry is clearly very different than it was in the 80s. There's a lot of people who still spend a lot of money who got hooked on comics in the 80s, who are very, excited to keep buying comics. And so in their minds, they are frustrated by some of the recent activities, the things that have happened in the last 10 years, like constantly rebooting a series or, ending it and then relaunching 2 months later with the same creative team or whatever flavor that is. Another thing people are irritated by, mysteries about whether a series is ongoing or a mini or what in the hell it is. Or, Children of the Atom. What was that comic? I know for a fact that when it was begun, it was thought of as a mini series, and then it became an ongoing series, and then it was a mini series again, and then it was just nothing. Nobody knew. It just was coming out, and then fine. The thing is, I think Rich is correct here. So, I put a quarter in the jar over here on that one, but it is a case where there is this weird embarrassment around saying something is canceled when don't be. I mean, look, when you're regurgitating series and you're ending them and beginning them and you're spitting out 30 variant covers, look, you got other things to be embarrassed about rather than what some news article somewhere is, or some video is saying about a canceled book. I find all this bizarre, and it doesn't have to be this way. To the point, Spider-Man, which Nick Spencer relaunched as a brand new #1. We got 75 odd issues into 76. Anyway, it got a long ways. We have a new team on it with Saladin Ahmed and Zeb Wells and Kelly Thompson and whatever the crew is who's doing this, Patrick Gleason, and they are continuing. The series is not relaunching. The series is not wandering into mystery territory over what it's doing with everything else. It seems like some of this problem is really related to the X Office, which has been putting out these comics and has been very, best word to put it is obnoxious about stating what is going on. Earlier this year, we saw that suddenly, the comics would just skip a month. X-Men would just skip a month. What's going on? Is Hickman late turning in a script? Are they moving it to bi-monthly without telling anyone? Like what's happening? And then when asked, the company got almost, irritable about it. Like you were calling them out on something when really it's like, what the F are you just doing with your publishing line? The X Office seems to maintain this. We are doing amazing. Everything is going great. The comics are selling. Everything is perfect. Everything is awesome. And, anybody who's saying anything to the contrary is just wrong and bad and, everything. And it just gets old because meanwhile, you get Children of the Atom again, delayed for a year, mystery of what it is. You get X Corp coming out. Is it a limited series? Who knows? We get Way of X, which is, again, what's going on with that? I guess it's a limited series. Oh, there's a one shot now at the end. Like, what are you doing? I think there's this assumption, maybe within the X Slack, that everybody is communicating. They all know what the hell is going on, and they have this big master plan, and it's just so awesome. But nobody is communicating that to the shops and the customers. So it looks from our end like absolute chaos. And so when people say things like Hellions was canceled, the reason why is because you ended the series and you have not announced a relaunch. And so to get pissy about what people are calling it, I mean, dude, that's on you at the end of the day. This all just gets a little tiring. So Marauders. So this is where I'm just going to be a dick. In the thumbnail of this video, Marauders canceled. 100% for sure. That's what I'm going to write there. So suck it. Thanks for listening.